Give you an overview here of the Nexus School Intranet that we created about 3 years ago. The first thing you'll see is we've customized it for our school, so we've just used the colors, and that was just a basic editing of the Google Sites template and changing the colors. You'll notice here that we have areas for staff and learners and parents to access, and also a generic area for our library and boarding students. Now what we've done here is we've used permissions to enable different people to access those different parts of the site. So if we just quickly go into sharing and permissions, and you'll see a tutorial of how to do this at the end of my presentation. You'll see here that there's a few owners of the site, and then we have people who can edit, and if we scroll down we have viewers. So for example, our learners can view the site. We don't want them to edit the pages. And if we just break down the different areas, you'll see that if we go into the staff area, for example, that we've used custom permissions here. So if we scroll down to the students, look, they don't have access to this area at all, and that's very important. And if I just go back to the intranet now, our students will not see this staff tab at all, so they won't have access to it, and that's really one of the really great features of Google Sites, is that you can control permissions and who can see what. Now, just exploring a little more deeply, we have our staff bulletin here with weekly updates, and that's just a simple web page. And we also host documents, and this is another really great feature of Google Sites now. About probably 3 years ago, Google introduced the ability to embed Google Drive folders into Google Sites, which is a really great feature. Now the power of this is that instead of endlessly sharing documents with our teachers, we can actually upload them to these folders, and it means people know where to go and get those documents. Now these folders are actually hosted in a generic account called Intranet, and if I just switch across to this account, you can see here that what we have are lots and lots of different folders and different owners of those folders. And again, the power of this comes down to permissions. So our senior leadership team can have edit access to important folders, and we can have teachers just to view those folders and what's in those folders. So for example, school-wide policies, they can have view access, and our senior leadership team and other teachers that need to access have edit access. And then what we do is we embed those folders onto a page on our staff intranet, and that means that people can find things they're looking for by going into the individual folders. And that's all hosted by this separate, what I call the intranet account. So it owns the different files and folders in here. Now, just going back now to the Google site to just explore a little bit more. This folder embedding is a very simple process, and I've also included that as a tutorial for you at the end if you're interested in seeing how to do this, and also a little bit about Google Drive folder permissions. Now, just exploring this in a little bit more depth, we've also got under here the learner secondary. This is actually a separate site, and our learners can go here to get their weekly bulletin and also find department site information. We've also got a link to our guidance counsellor. They can book the counsellor by using a Google form, and again, that's another feature of Google Sites. You can embed Google forms for people to fill in. And just going back to our main intranet, some of the other great things you can do here. If I just look into forms, for example, this is for staff. We've got the ability in here, let's just wait for this to load, to do a range of different things with forms. So teachers can refer learners to the counsellor, and we've also got external training requests as well. So these are all Google forms that staff can fill in. And the reason we do that is it's all about workflow. It saves time for somebody to fill in a form that will then be emailed to someone rather than filling it in on a separate piece of paper and printing it and all that kind of procedure. We've also got a few extra things that have been developed for us, and this is why Google Sites and Google is great for us as a school, and I'm sure hopefully you will see this. So for example, because it is open source, there's lots and lots of great features that you can find for this. So about 18 months ago, we got someone to develop a custom homework system for us. This actually links with a program called Teacher Dashboard, and what it does, it allows teachers to select classes and set homework, and the students can actually copy the set homework to their Google Calendar. Other things we've got in here as well, if I just go back a section, is we've also got our own custom written curriculum mapping software. So we can actually, you won't be able to see this in too much detail, but we can actually create what we call in Nexus scope documents or schemes of work using a custom-based form, and that creates Google documents that people can go and look at. You'll also see we've got things like tracking for students in here and all kinds of information. So these are all linked to Google spreadsheet documents that people can investigate in more detail. So a lot of this stuff is straightforward, so making the site itself. Custom permissions is, once you get used to it, it's quite straightforward, and embedding Google Drive folders. So at the very least, to get you started with an intranet, embed some shared folders and get the permission set up so different people can have different levels of access. We've also got a parent one as well, and again, they have view access to their own site. The extra features, so things like coding, obviously that's something if you're interested you can develop yourselves, and some of the extra bits like embedding forms and all that kind of extra stuff is really, really great, and you can get into doing that just by looking at some of the tutorials we provided at the end of the session.